town of the good, the bad, and the weird. You either live by the gun, or you die by the sword.
The greatest one-armed swordsman meets the OG disabled avenger today in a big, maybe little FU to the Shaw Brothers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. For sure.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Mike Reviews. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And we continue our disabled martial artist series with two of the most iconic characters clashing, and kind of a not so subtle nod to what we're doing next week.
No, this is, I think, a blatant description of what we're doing next week.
Yeah, currently we're doing Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman, because we've been saying meat for a while, and it's Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman.
Well, okay, so yes, but apparently, according to the internet, it was also released as Zatoichi meets the One-Armed Swordsman, and it was also released as the Blind Swordsman meets his equal.
Interesting.
So we're not completely wrong. We just couldn't read the DVD that we were watching.
No. But this one is based on the short story by Kan Shimazawa and written by Takayuki Yamada and Kimiyoshi Yasuda, directed by Yasuda.
Of course.
It's starring Shintaro Katsu as Zatoichi.
Once again.
Jimmy Wang Yu as Wang Kong, also only called the One-Armed Swordsman.
Yeah. Not my favorite name for a character in a film, but that's fine.
What would you prefer, Kong Wang?
Nope. I won't lie. I giggled quite a bit like a child because I'm immature. I apologize. I'm aware it's a normal name. I love that after a while, the descriptions of Zatoichi films gets really like reading a newspaper. It's like, the old man was helped across the road today by the Boy Scout. Yeah,
and I mean, that's like what we talked about a little bit last week, is that a lot of these serial films, especially what Zatoichi established, is you have to have them wandering, where we also get the Tora-san franchise.
Yeah.
And that was the key part of it, something that we talked about with how Lady Snowblood kind of ruins that, is she doesn't travel. She's not a wanderer.
That is one thing. The other thing I don't know. It's probably because universes like today's movie places, where like you have crossovers, you have this big expansive universe, especially if you have this many films like Zatoichi does, you have a pretty well built big world, and you just assume that your audience is up to date. And that's how you get around explaining why X knows Z and who blah 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 is, all that sort of stuff. Zatoichi never bothers to do that. He's barely infamous enough in his own universe. And then we get crossovers like this one, which I love. The crossover isn't necessarily like Batman meets like Superman. It's more like, yes, two gentlemen, very unassuming, definitely not both killers.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with Zatoichi, is he is known in certain circles of the Yakuza, but he's unknown to a lot of the other people around. It's only like the head honchos or like a henchman or two who knows who he is.
And 9 times out of 10, it's whether or not it's good for the story for the head person to know who he is.
Yeah.
Because then there's like the, oh my gosh, it's Zatoichi, I have heard of him. I think... Granted, I've not seen every single one in the box set you were lending me.
And the box set you have doesn't have every single one, because there's one that came out after that one.
True.
And then there's also the spin-offs with, that's about the female potential daughter trying to find Zatoichi. Then there's the couple remakes, the one that beat Takashi did.
Yeah, so I will preface this by saying I've not seen all of the Zatoichi films. However, I have now consumed a vast quantity in a very short amount of time. And I find it hilarious that there's not, like, wanted posts. I did not start at the beginning. I started in the middle of the box set and just kept going. And I find it hilarious that occasionally someone will be like, I have heard of the blind swordsman who is so good at his... And then other movies, like literally the next movie in the box set came out sometimes the same year. They'll be like, Zatoichi? A blind swordsman? Unheard of. Never heard of it.
And to be fair, outside of the first two and the last one, I would say there's a couple in between where he has like a companion that lasts between like the end of one movie and the start of the next one, but it's very few and far between.
It's in fact the opposite. This is, I think, some of the greatest marketing strategy, and that Marvel needs to take note. Because I didn't have to know damn shit about Zatoichi. I didn't have to watch the one before this one. I did not need to be caught up on who the One-Armed Swordsman was to enjoy this film. The movie told me everything I needed. It didn't do it in an obnoxious way. I just got to enjoy a really good movie, and then I watched like 5 more the same day.
Yeah.
This is the way to do a franchise. This is brilliant.
Well, to speak about its longevity, real quick, outside of Zatoichi, speaking of crossovers and universe of how people are related, you've actually heard us talk about Yasuda. He's the director of Yokai Monsters, 100 Monsters, and Daimajin, which we both did at our Japanese folk horror a couple years ago.
Fantastic movies.
Yamada and Kane are mostly known for a couple other Zatoichi movies. Katsu needs no introduction at this point.
Of course.
And maybe a little precursor to next week, as I've already said. Yu is a big name in the Hong Kong martial arts as iconically the One-Armed Swordsman.
Of course.
And has many other roles, including the Flying Guillotine, where he also played the one-armed boxer.
I love that, because I do not think the actor is one-armed.
No.
I believe he has both arms, and he just has it in his shirt the whole movie.
Tied behind his back.
I love it!
Well, we'll get more into him next week.
Okay.
But Terada, people would recognize as Teiko's mother in Only Yesterday. Nanbara is fantastic. You have gone between 2 studios.
Yes, interesting.
So, Daiei, the original creators of Zato, or distributors, creators, whatever you want to call them, they went bankrupt, and Zatoichi continued with Katsu Productions, which was Shintaro Katsu's own production company.
Oh, interesting.
And that's why, if you'll get to a certain point, if you watch them in order, there's a next one is much more bloodier and violent.
Oh.
And it's because we're in a different decade at that point, and it's Katsu Productions, so they're playing a little bit more into it. Katsu would also do, if I remember right, did Lone Wolf and
okay.
You're getting this crash course of jumping through the Zatoichi franchise and how they transition from one era to the next, and why I think it stayed and kept its longevity is because it became more violent. It adapted to what more modern audiences wanted, because the original is so tame compared to this one.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense, and I completely agree with you, because watching them, there is enough evolution. Not necessarily in the character, not necessarily in the world building, just in the way it's filmed, that I was entertained even though I was hopping and skipping around throughout the box set. Like, I start in the middle and go, up next TV. I literally would flip through and be like, oh, that title sounds fun. And put it in. There definitely was a difference between the front half of the box and the back half of the box. But it was still within the same theme. And much in the way that a lot of Westerns slowly got more and more violent. I felt like it was the same sort of like way that like a John Wayne film would, where it just kind of kept getting a little bit more modern as it went. Like
the transition from traditional Westerns to spaghetti Westerns.
Yeah, or even just like having the gunshots be mostly just smoke, and then maybe a man off stage be like, to having blood, having the whole, and having like a more intense reaction when it went from being just something you went and saw in theaters to something that was going to be available at home, or even just something you knew was going to come out regularly.
Yeah.
Once you started having like, oh, we're going to be doing like 10 more of this character or this style, far you take things.
Well, and you also have to keep an audience. We're covering movies that are in the late stages of the decline of the Japanese serial film series. So I think this is the 26th, and there's 27? Or no, this is 22nd, and there's 27. So we're kind of at that tapering tail end. Something
there has to be something.
Yeah, something to keep people returning to this one. And we see that with this one. You bring one of Hong Kong's biggest martial artists and one of their biggest characters, one who did, and I'll get into this next week, changed Hong Kong cinema as well, and that they're getting that crossover. And we also don't start off with Zatoichi. We start off with the One-Armed Swordsman traveling to China, making him the outsider in this, even more of an outsider than Zatoichi. Not only is he disabled, he's a foreigner on top of it.
And I loved how this movie balanced all of the different levels of outsiderness that each one of these characters brought to the table. It at no point felt too gimmicky, which I think honestly would have been a little easy to have hit on with a blind swordsman and a one-armed martial artist.
Yeah.
Like, this could have been incredibly cheesy.
Oh, very much so. And I mean, it is at some points too. I mean, don't get me wrong.
There is some cheese.
It follows the evil rulers that are doing this, and as we find out, all for abalone to make money.
Sure, but that's in line with the Zatoichi like standard plot device. Like, I expect there to be a clear bad guy that Zatoichi will be blamed for woes he has not caused, and then he will fight and leave. And
that's the interesting thing about this one. Zatoichi is not the one who's blamed for this at all. It's One-Armed Swordsman.
Which I do find interesting. I really liked the who betrayed whom sort of plot point that was running through this whole thing. Because it really did bring this whole idea of, like, honor amongst the lowest into question. And it does so in a really nice way, because the audience is never tricked on who's lying to who. You see the whole thing the whole time. And yet, the plot points all work, even though you know the answer.
Well, it's because it's because you know the answer, and you're getting frustrated that One-Armed Swordsman starts mistrusting Zatoichi.
Yes.
Even though Zatoichi's doing all the right things. And part of it is just because of the miscommunication, and the little boy not wanting to or not being able to actually fully translate between the two of them.
Yes, and the translation, like, story point for this film, I did find really fun. It's something that I think would have been done totally different if this was a modern movie, and especially a modern movie in English, because then it's a lot easier to just have someone else speak a foreign language and not even bother to put subtitles on to kind of help confuse the audience. This movie I watched in subtitles, and it subtitles both characters, and so you have to be paying good enough attention to catch on that they are not speaking the same language, especially if you're not very fluent or familiar with either language. I think it worked fairly well.
Yeah.
There was no, like, it wasn't too confusing to follow along. Honestly, partially because the One-Armed Swordsman doesn't really talk a whole lot in this film.
No, not really, because he doesn't have any way to really communicate. And what I like about that is, like, it ends up becoming a movie about his plight and the boy's plight rather than Zatoichi, because even then, how Zatoichi gets introduced into this movie is he's just kind of wandering by and gets caught up with, hey, I found a wandering child.
Yes, I do appreciate that Zatoichi keeps finding random shit to get caught up in.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you gotta keep the series going. He just can't be some side character, unless it's Ichi and then he's not even in the movie at all.
Yeah, that's true. But I also do like that because we take care of the dialogue problem between languages by just kind of having the swordsman not talk a whole lot, that way he feels a little awkward, a little bit outsidery. It also makes him feel very stoic.
Yeah, well, not just that. It makes him feel... It keeps him in line with at least the early iterations of the One-Armed Swordsman, where because he's not the exact same character from the Chinese ones.
No, it's technically a different guy. He's got a different, like, name and a different backstory.
Yeah. But he's the way he looks down, a little bit down upon Zatoichi, almost like he's a little bit better than him at times.
Yeah, which is interesting because they don't really go toe-to-toe until much later.
No, not until the very end of the movie. And that's the thing, too, is, like, when we see One-Armed Swordsman going toe-to-toe with other samurai, what it does is it's this fun and weird juxtaposition between the stiffness of samurai cinema and the just kind of goofy, over-the-top abilities that you see in, like, the wuxia movies of, like, them being able to jump from the ground level up into the boughs of trees, but the Japanese samurai can't even look up because they're not expecting them to do that. Whereas, like, in a wuxia movie, which we'll see that in a later one, anyone who jumps up is immediately a target because they're defenseless, and it's like, okay, we can get them from up there because they're expecting them to jump up and flee, whereas, like, they're just expecting this guy to be running on foot away from them.
I also really like that the two different styles of action in this movie play well together in a silly way, because at this point, the action in a Zatoichi film has gotten a tiny bit goofy, just to kind of help keep ramping up how good Zatoichi is with a blade. We have to keep adding bad guys for him to destroy. We're not into unreasonable territory yet.
No.
But it's still overplayed. There's a lot more action than we see in some of the more seriously...
Well, and that's the thing is, like, Zatoichi never goes full...
No.
I mean, it has some comedy with it, but it never goes full off the rails. Like, it's not completely unbelievable.
No, it's never too wild, but it is enough for it to be fun, whereas other, especially samurai-based movies, have a tendency to be so stiff, so quiet, and like it's very realistic. It's probably much more historically accurate, but it's not as fun, especially if you're going to do 20 plus movies of it. Well, and so I think the Hong Kong styling plus the kind of over the top swords play, they really balanced each other out. They felt very like quick and action packed.
Well, and you gotta also consider that this is more of a Yakuza movie than it is a samurai film.
True.
Because think about the tension of these samurai films that we've talked about and how that translated into the spaghetti westerns. It's those long standoffs. It's the tension that's brought up between two foes about to clash. Whereas Wuxia is a lot of, right into the action. Same with a lot of Yakuza movies. It's all about the heat of the moment rather than the cautious preparations.
Yes, and Zatoichi's, the styling of Zatoichi is kind of period drama based. It's kind of turns itself into a lot of more modern period dramas where it's not really action, it's more the drama part. Mm-hmm. I like that the character Zatoichi keeps bringing the drama part back into the main focal point of this movie. Yeah. Because the kid otherwise would be the most useless character to have ever been written. But because Zatoichi is interested and invested in these two characters, he keeps dragging up these different elements that kind of keep the story interesting. Well,
because he's helping another underdog like him, someone who, as far as he knows, the dude's got one arm, but he's true. But he's just there to he knows people who are in worse positions than he currently is in, and so that's the stoicism of his character that makes him such a strong protagonist, even if he has the little toilet humor here and there.
The humor in this specific Zatoichi film is a little bit more tee-hee-hee fart jokes. Yeah. Whereas some of the other ones, there's more slapsticky versus a running gag. Mm-hmm. I don't hate the humor in this one. It's just there. And sometimes it's there where it didn't need to be.
No, I mean, that's fine.
It's what it is.
It's cheesy.
Yeah.
But I think part of it, too, is it plays in with Henoichi, the other blind masseur or gambler that he runs into.
Yes, yeah.
Where it's this little bit of just fellow trickery among each other, where that's where the humor of that type of humor breaks out is when he's also having fun with someone else who's on his level. So it's that fun, little bit of playful humor compared to the other more serious stuff that he has to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
And even then, we talk about some of these useless, you bring up the kid could have been useless. The kid's utilized as that point of interest that puts these two characters in parts of companionship, whereas also opposed to each other at times because of the misunderstandings.
Yes.
But of the characters, unfortunately, the female characters in this one suffer the worst compared to some of the other movies.
They're so blah.
Well, and part of that too, unfortunately, is because they had to bring in, each of them had to have their own love interest, and it's just kind of you don't spend enough time to really give either a chance to shine, because this movie's only an hour and 34 minutes. So you have to do the rest of the story, and you get, of course Zatoichi's going to have his traveling love interest that he has in every single movie.
Yeah, that I won't lie. That was something that I had kind of hoped this specific movie for Zatoichi was going to skip, is just about every one of them is there's someone who shows interest in him because it kind of proves that he's not just the lowest level, the blind person. He's
a Zato.
Yeah, he could be, there is room for love. He is a very capable person, not just because he can slice an orange in half before it falls. But this one, it kept the trope. It kept the trope because, we have to have love for everyone, but I kind of wish one of the love interests were gone.
Yeah.
Maybe just let the One-Armed Swordsman have someone interested in him this time, and Zatoichi can be a wingman. Yeah. For once.
Well, maybe he just keeps getting the women because he's got a great wang.
Terrible joke.
Very terrible.
Terrible joke.
But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's like, if you had focused in just given One-Armed Swordsman that opportunity, I don't think Zatoichi needed another one, because it just... No, I mean... It's just more to detract from the plot of, like, trying to give that character hope, because we know Zatoichi's going to make it out of this.
Yeah, no, he's the main character. I'm not worried about him.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really liked about this one is because we had a second normal blind guy in this film who is not a secretly great swordsman. He's just good at trickery and, you know, getting around.
Yeah.
I liked that they spent a little bit of extra time showing off what sort of place that level of trickery and what a normal guy, how quick on his feet and how good at, like, talking his way out of a situation. If you were not Zatoichi, you would have had to be. And I like that there was that extra layer in there, even if the character really was just kind of for the shits and giggles. It kind of built up this, like, oh, he is on the same level as a lot of these other guys. He is truly one of the greats, despite everything else.
Yeah, or at least he's well known enough that, or he's copying Ichi's trick, or Zatoichi's tricks, that he's like, hey, we're kind of in on this together, so
yes.
they're playing off each other a little bit.
Yes.
But the other thing with this movie, too, is I think it does balance Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman's own battles very well, especially when we get to the end where they both have their own climax to deal with before their final duel.
Yes.
But I do like how they trap Zatoichi, and like they do a really good job of putting him into a corner where like they make him not this powerful hero.
Yes. If you bring him back down a little bit.
Yeah, jumping from the first one to this one, you have to bring him down just that little bit, but he's still going to overpower them because he has all this experience. He's living in this world of death that he's been navigating for forever. And then even when One-Armed Swordsman's betrayed, and he has to fight his way through all of that, he's able to get through because, again, he's fighting in a completely different style that all these other samurai are not prepared to fight against. So he's like jumping on their heads and shit while they're trying to get him on the ground.
It is a really fun mashup. I really enjoyed that there was room for both styles of fighting in this film, and really the only person being on the joke end of the fight is the bad guys, the samurai. Yeah,
very much so. And even like with that final duel, we transition into this almost Western feeling of like a duel of like there's that tension that builds up, then we have
there's a little high noonie.
Yeah, we get that couple of quick clashes, and then it's the back and forth of like, oh, well, we got to be quiet, and that's the thing is like why I think this one stands out so well. Of the Zatoichi finds a friend throughout the journeys, this isn't my favorite one. That one goes to Zatoichi and the Chess Master, but
sure.
This one, I think the only way that they can ever really find that friendship, or what could have been a friendship, is they understand each other through the blade.
Yes.
Where like
a base point together.
Yeah, it transcends actual oral language.
I completely agree, and I love the way this movie managed to show that without necessarily having some narrator tell me everything about it.
Exactly. I think it's when, at least in our version, because supposedly there's a Chinese version where One-Armed Swordsman wins.
Which would be fun.
Supposedly it's surfeit. I still can't find the actual video of it, but...
Yeah, I don't doubt that it existed, at least at some point.
Yeah. I mean, for the Hong Kong audience specifically. But
sure.
I do like when Kang is dying and he's just like, oh... If only we could have actually communicated, all this would have been avoided. Yeah, and that's the bittersweetness of Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman, is that there is that end to it. Is like he could have had yet another friend, and now he's got to wander alone.
Yep. Which, I mean, is the end of every one of these movies, is essentially Zatoichi be like, back to the road by myself.
Well, I also think what makes it harder, too, is that One-Armed Swordsman forces him into the fight, is that he's trying to fight against it the entire time. And if only one of the other people who also speaks Chinese would have been able to translate to them.
If only. I will say that I like the build-up for this one, because... knowing the Zatoichi franchise, knowing that this is the last one in the lineup, and the next one doesn't also feature the One-Armed Swordsman, you logically know how this movie is going to end. But this does go a good job of kind of roping you in and giving you a little bit of hope that maybe they can at least leave on peaceful terms and he has a friend, not that they never run into each other again, but they were friendly from a distance sort of thing. I like that this one ends with kind of a grief moment, as opposed to, honestly, a lot of the Zatoichi movies where he leaves because he must he has to keep wandering.
Yeah.
Leaving behind potentially a good life or a good friend or some...
It's usually a love interest.
It is usually a love interest. Occasionally it is some, kind of child who, looks up to him. This one, I kind of like that this would have been, a truly great friendship. They would have really understood each other. And yet, instead of being he could potentially wander and meet him again, no. One of them is dead, depending on which version you're watching, apparently.
Exactly. So then, Chris, rent by streamer declined that we ever watched Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman, despite having an audio recording of us watching it.
I really like the Zatoichi franchise, and I am a little jealous of your very impressive box set.
Thank you.
I do think that if you can get a hold of a handful of these and watch them together, that is honestly the best way to watch Zatoichi, is having a small movie marathon. So if you can get a hold of them and buy them, I do think it's worth it. The box set is beautiful if you can get a hold of that, but I'm aware it's probably a little pricey.
Wait until the July and November sales at Barnes & Noble's. That's the time. I bought it off a friend, so...
Yeah, no. So if you can buy it, I do think it's worth it. There's... So far, I've yet to run into one that I was like, wow, that was a lemon. So far, they're all fun. They're all a little bit different. This just happened to be, the one for today.
Yeah, I'll give you a heads up. Even the quote-unquote lemons in this box set are still pretty decent movies.
Yeah, and for a box set with this many movies, the stuff that comes with it's nice. I do recommend this one. If you don't want to spend the money, at least try and watch this. This is a good movie.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. Buy it if you can get it as a single. It's a solid story of the scapegoat for an outsider, and also the outsider from within attempting to band together.
Yes,
and just
absolutely.
that fallout. It's the icon that meets his inspiration, and that I think that's more so my reason to watch it. Is one, great story, but two, it's such a not clash but mashup of two icons.
Yes.
And the way they work the genres together is so fun that for me it's fun because I like both genres, but
sure, but I think even without that background knowledge, it was still a fun movie.
Oh yeah, 100% so yeah, definitely go and buy it if you can, or stream it. I'm pretty sure it's...
I'm sure somewhere you can watch it.
It's either on HBO or Tubi.
It's there somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, so... But yeah, so that's Zatoichi and the One-Armed Swordsman. Next week is probably an easy guess for most, since we're doing the duo this time and going... not going in order as we probably should have.
I wonder what it will be.
I wonder. I'd bet my right arm that it's something we talked about today.
I'll put it behind my back in my shirt. No one will ever see it.
Never. But anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.